My name is Peggy Littleton, and I'm a Paso County Commissioner, Commissioner District 5, and Daryl Glenn is Commissioner District 1, and he is the lead for the recovery on the Black Forest fire. And he's done a wonderful game plan where he's tasked each one of us commissioners to have certain areas that we're going to be dealing with. Some of them deal with areas of our expertise. Some of them we're getting stretched just as much almost as you are. But seeing that we're in a church this evening, and seeing that we always open our Waldo County Commissioners meetings with invocation, I'd like you to join me if you would, please. So you bow your heads. Father, we just come before you this evening, and we ask that you would be with us in everything that is said and done and thought tonight. This is a hard time for a lot of us that are just in shock and wondering which way to turn, where to go, and seeking help. And I pray tonight that you would have nuggets of information be disseminated through all those that are participating, and that people would leave encouraged and know that their hearts have been touched and that they'll feel hugged and helped. We ask this in your precious name. Amen. So, without further ado, I'm going to open this up for just a few moments to Commissioner Glenn, have him say a couple of words, and then we will begin with each one of our speakers this evening.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. You know, this is a very trying time, and actually, you know, we have half of our Waldo County Commissioners right now looking at Waldo and some of the flood issues right now. So our community is obviously being challenged, but I'm firmly convinced that working together, we will be a strong community. I've seen so much of an outpouring of love and respect for what everybody's going through. We are dedicated as a county to make sure that we work with you in the recovery and rebuilding process. So I want to make sure that we leave tonight. If you have any questions that are still left unanswered, please let us know, because this is just the first of a series of meetings that we want to have. Again, this is our force. We want to make sure that we restore it the way it should be. We want to make sure that we take care of the needs of our community. And we are 100% committed to doing that. So from my heart, I just want you to know that we're working around the clock to try to address your needs. Commissioner Peggy Littleton, this was tailor-made for her. She is very passionate about this, has been working with me side by side since day one with this whole effort. So she's put together a great program for you. So with that, I want to turn it over to Commissioner Peggy Littleton. Thank you very much.
We have a lot of other partners that are working with us. Some of you are familiar with your representatives up here. I see Senator Lambert is here this evening, and he's been working with us at the state level as well as, I don't see, is Representative Stevens here this evening? She may be coming, and Representative Norberg down the river. Those are the people that represent you in this area. We've made sure to keep them very engaged and very involved, because they can be supportive of us at the state and the federal level as well in securing funding, making sure that we're getting any kind of assistance we can for you. This evening we're going to start by having some folks who went through this almost exactly a year ago, and who I think can offer some advice, some wisdom, and discernment. And I asked them to cover kind of within 10 to 15 minutes what their situation was, to see if it resonates with you, if it's your situation, to tell us what went right. What are the things that they say, if you do anything, do this. Start with this on your list. And then I've asked them to go and to delve a little bit deeper and to say, gosh, I would have done this differently if only I would have known. So with us this evening we have Carla Albers, and her husband Mark is our family dentist, and so we've known the Albers for light years, about 20 years. And so Carla has agreed to come this evening. Her husband Mark said he would be of no use because Carla did everything, and he'd just have to defer the questions to her anyway, so he sends his regards. We have Dr. and they lost their house totally, completely, entirely. And we have heartbreaking stories to talk about that. Dr. Pat Boone. Pat Boone had her home was damaged, and so she's going to talk from that perspective as opposed to a total loss, because those are totally different situations and totally different insurance situations you're going to have. And then we have Steve and Carla Price with us. They also lost their home completely and will tell us their story. So without further ado, and they all know that if I come and give the gentle nudge that their time is up, to pass it on to the next person. But be writing down questions as you're going through this. Be writing down great ideas that they have to share.
Hello everyone, I'm sorry. So one of the things I would like to do is just kind of give you an idea of things that we did in terms of the insurance process, because I have to tell you it was painful and long and tedious, but you cannot put it off. And there are some things that I figured out. I would say that every person's journey is intensely personal. What I experienced and went through is not necessarily going to be how you react to this. And so if I'm telling you things that I felt or did, and you don't feel that way, that's okay, because you're different, you have a different story, you're in a different place. So we lost our home of 22 years. It was our only home. Our final building inspection was April 30th. We started moving in May 2nd. So it will get better at some point. We had a high school graduation May 21st. We had a big party that night with 3 teenage boys, and according to my son, it was the best party of all of them in our new house. So that's exciting. There are things to look forward to, so don't forget that, even though it doesn't seem like it now. One of the things I would encourage you to do is be organized. I'm not a naturally organized person, but right after, I've got my little show and tell here, I went out and I got a notebook, and it's got a couple sections, and I wrote down everything in here. My insurance adjuster, my claim number, the numbers I need to call. I cannot stress how important it is for you guys to be organized. I also got expanded files. I got file folders in here. I had State Farm insurance. I'm guessing a number of you guys did too. Anybody here with State Farm? Some of the coverages you need to understand are different. State Farm coverage A is the building, coverage B is contents, coverage C is the loss of use, where you can go to the hotel and they'll pay for that. But I have a file in here for my coverage A, so everything related to coverage A I try to keep in a folder. Everything related to coverage B. The thing that was really hard for this, will be hard for the State Farm policy holders, your policy will provide that you can get your contents replaced and they'll reimburse you, but you have to prepare an inventory, and that's what your policy says, and it's just something that you need to do. Some insurance companies, I know USAA and Farmers will do this, will allow you to choose to take a percentage of your contents coverage, and you don't have to do an inventory. And some people will do that and walk away. Some people will keep receipts, and if they can show that they've replaced more contents than what they received on that percentage, they can go back and ask for additional sums later. But under the State Farm policy, we had to make an inventory of everything. So I have a file here, and I kept track of things. So I had a file folder from Bed Bath & Beyond, for instance. If you go there, what they did for the Waldo families is they let you sign up like a bridal registry. They give you a little gun, and you can go around and scan. And when you're done, they print off a sheet. And it was so easy compared to some of the other ways that we had to try to recreate that inventory form. And State Farm actually let me turn that form in versus recreating everything on the inventory sheets that they gave us. The other thing that I did, if you have any familiarity with Excel, I created my own spreadsheet so that I could more easily group and add on to things. And gosh, did I put down the Pampered Chef pan? Yes, I can search that and figure out that I did, and I was not repeating work. And so on my Excel sheet, for instance, I had the following categories, just to tell you guys, and I can go into answer questions later. But I had a section on kitchen, furniture, and for my furniture section, I separated it by rooms. For me, that was easier. So I have my living room, so I could go around the couch, chair, entertainment center, master bedroom, bed, dresser, whatever. I had one on art. We had a lot of artwork. Sports and fitness equipment. We had 2 kids that did a lot of sports, and we have one for the garage. My husband actually did have to do the inventory for the garage, and luckily for him, I took pictures of that before I left the house as the fire was coming down the hill. I had one on hobbies. He used to build airplanes, model airplanes. We had one on appliances and electronics, one from Amazon. One of the things I'll mention here is places like American Family or American Furniture Warehouse, for instance, you can go there if you bought stuff there in the last 5 or 6 years, and a lot of times they can pull up a listing of things that you bought. And so then you have a start on that inventory process. But I did the same thing for Amazon, because I ordered a lot of stuff off Amazon, went to the website, and I could recreate all of those things that we had in the house that we didn't have anymore. I had a miscellaneous category, and then I had a clothing category. And again, within those sheets, I would separate it out. So for my husband, for me, for my daughter, for my son. But what I found after the fires, I was very disorganized, very forgetful. So the more you can just make yourself be organized now when you're getting started, the less you're going to have to recreate the wheel. The other thing that we did is, and I'm so sorry you guys have to do this because I'm not going to lie, it takes a lot of time, it's really hard. We went to Lowe's. We walked up and down. They have pre-printed forms. You can write down the SKU number is what I use, but it's their identifying number, the price. Most of the inventory requirements are that you list the item, a description, where you bought it. At the State Farm, when I do a list where you bought it, sometimes I would put down, I don't remember. Sometimes I would put down, I got it for a wedding gift. They want to know the replacement cost. And so it's really important that if you go to a furniture store and they said, hey, we're having a sale on this item, don't put down the sale price, because you need to put down what the cost of the item is. When you turn it into your insurance company, they're going to depreciate it based on the age of the item. So that's one thing I didn't understand up front, is that I needed to put the full value, not the sale price I could get it that particular day. I think those are the main things for now, and I'll pass it down, we can come back, but if I could just encourage you, if nothing else, be organized, keep track of every conversation. I know I did want to mention something else. We had a long meeting with our insurance agent within a week to start to recreate our house, and at least our State Farm experience with that catastrophe, and they kind of change things based on the event they're dealing with, and they figure out things that work and things that don't. And my hope is that they figured out some things last year. But we sat down with our agent and we went room by room to recreate our house. What flooring did we have? What trim? Did we upgrade the windows? And then they take that information, they plug it into a program, and they came up with a value. This is what it would cost to rebuild your house. But after that, we got a letter from them spelling out what our coverages were. Here's how much your house is worth, or the insurance coverage for your house. We had some additional coverages, some optional coverages. One was increased dwelling. Sometimes you'll see it as option ID on your insurance sheet. We had one for increase if there's the building codes that have changed that make it more expensive to rebuild. We had some additional coverage there. But we ended up getting a letter from State Farm that spelled out, this is this coverage, here's how much you have for this coverage, this coverage, this coverage. You guys need to make sure that you know what your coverages are. And you need to ask your insurance company to get you a letter and spell out every possible coverage that you have. Because I can tell you, my background is in law, and I actually ran an in-house litigation office for State Farm Insurance, so I have a little more knowledge than maybe some people. I didn't know about my homeowner's policy. I really wish I would have paid more attention. And so I didn't understand that I had all this coverage. I didn't know for sure that when we had to stay in the hotel, that State Farm paid for that. They paid for the rental. We actually, the State Farm policy is 2 years. Some of you will only have 1 year. Make sure you know what your limits are. So if you don't we didn't get that formal letter really spelling things out, I think, for a couple of weeks. But you need to make sure that if they don't provide it to you, you ask them for that letter. You ask them to get a certified copy of your policy, because if you're like me, you ran out without a copy of your insurance policy that burned. So make sure you have a copy of that policy, read through it. If you don't understand it, have your agent or your adjuster go through it with you so that you know the different places you can tap money, because, you know, there's a lot to replace. It takes a lot to rebuild a house, a lot to furnish it. I mean, when you think about replacing everything in your kitchen, you know, It's going to be a long process, and you need to make sure you're getting as much as you can out of this process. So be organized, know what your coverages are, and be persistent in asking questions. Oh, so Peg wanted me to tell you what I would have done differently. We had a mortgage through Wells Fargo Insurance Company, and because if you have a mortgage, then your lender will be on the check with you when your insurance company writes you a check for the house. So when we got that check, it was made out to Wells Fargo and Mark and Carl Adams. And what I wish I would have done differently, which one of my friends did, it was a real hassle because then you have to send that check off, and in Wells Fargo's case, it's somewhere in Alabama. And then I could not get an answer as to when I was going to get the money back that we were entitled to. We chose to pay off our mortgage. Some of you might want to keep paying on that mortgage. They'll hold that money in escrow for you, but we had some equity that I wanted back. And I'm maybe a little more trained to be persistent than some people, and I spent probably a full day on the phone one day tracking down, trying to get somebody to answer, when am I going to get my money? Because you can take your money, but I want my money. What my neighbor did is have her insurance company, she got the final payoff from her mortgage company, if this is where you want to go. She got that information from her bank, and then she had her insurance company write out a check to the bank for that full amount, and then the remainder to them. And I don't know if you guys remember, there was an article in the paper last fall about a fellow who had a mortgage and just could not get that money back. It was, going through all different levels, could not get anybody to answer questions. So that would be one thing that I would explore differently. You have to make a choice or really think through how you want to handle that. I've had some friends that just continue to pay that mortgage, and then it just kind of rolled into the construction loan and then into the new home. So there's a lot of things to consider with that, but that would be one thing I would definitely do differently.
And you all know you have your cards with you, your index cards you handed when you came in. If you need extra ones, we would love for you to write your questions down. And at the end, we'll have you kind of pass those over. We'll ask some of the like questions so that they don't get asked over and over again. And then those that are unique, we'll have an opportunity to answer as well individually.
How many of you have homes that need to be fixed up? In other words, do not lose your total home. Okay, good. Thank you. This is our home. It's the picture that was in the paper for a week after the Waldo Canyon Fire, and also it was in the paper a couple of weeks ago. This is our home with a circle around it. I have a 7-minute presentation. I want to begin with a disclaimer, and I'm sure everyone will join me on this one. What works for me may not work for you, and I take no responsibility for any actions you may take as a result of my presentation. Maybe your insurance company has already settled with you and been wonderful to you. My insurance company wasn't. It was Central Insurance. It's the Berkshire Hathaway company, and we thought it was fine at the beginning. Nor were most people's insurance company that I talked with in the last year, but I will tell you the truth as I know it, and I sincerely hope what I tell you will help you. We had a stucco home with a concrete shingle roof, and the previous year we had paid to have wildfire mitigation done. Wildfire mitigation prices varied greatly, so check around. Here's what happened. Basically, we thought that if you were honest and timely with your insurance company, that everything would be okay. How wrong we were. There is an insurance speak language that homeowners just don't know. We called our local insurance representative and were only told that we have to deal with the insurance company's toll-free number. There was no "I'm sorry," or "we'll come out and take a look," or we'll help you. Our local representative was Sixth and Giving, and that is the reason we have since moved all of our insurance business elsewhere. We don't want to have an insurance agent who just takes our money and isn't there when we need him. I called the toll-free number, and here's what she didn't tell us. Here's what she didn't tell us. She didn't tell us that if you are in a 5-bedroom, 3-bath home, that you are entitled to rent a 5-bedroom, 3-bath home. We rented a hotel room the size of our living room, and we were there for 3 months. Number 2, she didn't tell us that you can choose your own restoration and repair company. We spent almost 3 months waiting for the insurance company's choice, Belfour, to contact us, and nothing was being done on our home. You can only be in our house for 20 minutes before your eyes started to burn. It turned out that Belfour said they had lost our name. Once they finally did contact us, their prices were high since Central Insurance had contacted Belfour in Denver rather than Belfour locally, and they had to charge extra for travel time. Belfour even sent an engineer who said the house was the same as it was before the fire. It wasn't. He just plain lied. He even said that the house had been built wrong, which it hadn't been. Number 3, she didn't tell us to immediately take pictures inside and out. Number 4, she didn't tell us, had it applied to us, that we didn't have to rebuild to get the insurance money. Number 5, she didn't tell us that the ash containing sulfuric acid would burn our hands, which we soon found out. I started going to free seminars given by public adjusters, specifically Pete Romero, and checking online. It turned out that Pete had helped over 15,000 people in his 27 years of being a public adjuster, beginning when he himself had been taken advantage of by his insurance company as a customer after he had a fire. I began to learn what my rights were. He even told us about one public adjuster who had not been honorable after other fires. And when I called DORA, the Department of Regulatory Agencies, Division of Insurance, where are you? You're here somewhere, there in the back, okay. When I called to ask about this other man, I could only say his first name before the man at DORA, Department of Insurance, said his last name and said, "You haven't signed anything with this man yet, have you?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, don't, because he already has claims against him." So I began to check everyone against Colorado's Department of Insurance before I let them into our house or worked with them. I also joined Angie's List and have used people recommended there and have been surprised at the comments about some businesses' work that I had thought would be legitimate companies. Well, about 10 weeks after the fire, after I had prayed and prayed, I was watching a fellow come off my roof that had been to the house before, and I told him my situation. I was desperate. He said, "I can tell you who to call, PCI." He said that his brother had had things stolen by a company who had taken the contents of his house and didn't return them. PCI had helped him. I called PCI immediately, and they made an appointment to come out the next morning. It turned out that PCI is a man and his sister who had formerly owned a restoration company, sold it, and had gone into the insurance business as a representative for American Family. There he had learned insurance speak and how the system worked. Later, he had left insurance and started his own restoration company. PCI is honest and honorable and knows how to talk to the insurance company. They had us back in our house in only 2 weeks, and they guarantee their work for 5 years. After a year, bringing you up to date, we are still having repairs because, as surprising but absolutely true, we were told that everything electrical, rubber, or plastic will fail over time from the intense heat of a wildfire, like the washer, the dryer, the dishwasher, the rubber in the garbage disposal, etc. Ash still comes into our home through our vents in the kitchen and bathrooms. It gets on our mail. Items stick to our bathroom counters. We have had over $200,000 in repairs paid for by Central Insurance, including replacing all of our windows as they all had broken seals. After many months, I got to know my agent at Central Insurance, and after Dave at PCI told her, "You don't want to mess with these people." We got things repaired and replaced with proper photo documentation and details. For example, the engineer, the one who lied, said the fire didn't come within 25 feet of the house, but we had pictures showing the burned area came right up to our windows. I have found that an insurance company doesn't care about you, only your premiums, but that if you check around, there are some insurance agents that have worked with their companies long enough that their companies will believe them based on their past performance and documentation when they say that things are bad and need to be replaced. Our insurance representative is now Andy Holloman with American Family, who has 15 years experience with that company. We had Pete Romero as a backup in case our insurance company didn't do what they were supposed to do. Pete charges more than the normal 10%. In other words, you pay him a set percentage of everything you receive from the insurance company after he begins to represent you. But I think he's worth it because he'd be able to get you more for repairs, is more knowledgeable of insurance rules, regulations, and cases, and doesn't take no for an answer. Many public adjusters are set up to just refer you to attorneys on their payroll who will involve you in long-term litigation and will still take their percentage, plus you'll pay an extra percentage to the attorneys. So to summarize, if your insurance company is giving you a hard time and not helpful, for repairs I would call Dave or Linda at PCI, and for a total loss I would call Pete Romero. Their numbers are PCI 487-1161, Pete Romero 626-333-0199. Thank you very much. The numbers, this is just my recommendation, but this is who I would use. I use PCI, which stands for Professional Companies Incorporated. PCI 487-1161. 487-1161. And for a total loss, if you're having trouble, Pete Romero 626-333-0199.
Good evening. I am Carla Price, and you have heard this a lot, and I will tell you again that I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that we are here, and I'm sorry that you are here, but what I will tell you is that there is hope. And I know that when I was in your shoes, it was hard for me to wash my face. It was a conscious decision to move forward every single day. So I think as we sit here together, please question us and please ask us, knowing that, again, just as you said, the journey might be different, but chances are it will be the same journey, and it will be one of wholeness and fulfillment, because this community, this county is so good. And I hope that you all are feeling the love that we certainly felt in Waldo to have people come alongside you. So for that, I'm really very humbled and blessed to be here. Steve and I worked the claim in very a tandem manner, but a very different manner. He is highly organized, he writes contracts for a living, and I kind of did the softer side. So that's what I'm really going to do tonight, because I think that's one of the best things I can tell you, which is this is a marathon, it is not a sprint. I saw many, many people come through the DAC, and we would sit and we would talk, and you will get through this, you will do it beautifully. Just remember to every day know that it will be something that you will work towards, and when you're tired, stop working. I would suggest that you have grace with one another. I think we learned that really pretty quickly, because there are so many emotions involved. So sometimes when it just got to be too much, just to step back. And I think that's one thing that I wish I would have done probably more at the beginning and more forcefully, to recognize, again, it is totally a marathon. It will happen, and if you just do it day by day, and I think Carla talked to it, Pat talked to it deliberately, you're going to begin to know, Carla has a right to a fire diary. Make that your list of go-to. So when you wake up at 2 in the morning, you already have your fire diary. It's something you can get off your mind and you can get back to the process of taking care of yourself. The other thing that I would speak to, when it is appropriate, and if it is appropriate, I was very involved in getting a group of women together that acted really as a support for one another, and I think for either be it partial loss or total loss, loss is loss. And I think as you come together with one another, whether you are a little bit nutty one day, you have other people aside you that you kind of raise your hand and think, okay, I'm not alone. And so that was something that was really helpful, certainly in our community and with the group. The men started a group as well. So again, this is something very early. But as things come to fruition, September, October, consider that. We are certainly here. The group is here, and I think really the most thing I want to do is to let you know that when you make your decisions, you don't have to make them right now. There's nothing that you must do except start working your plan, do it together, do it with grace, clearly do it with honor with your company, but also recognize there are many, many resources in this community to help undergird you. So recognize that those resources exist. There are very good trusted advisors that when push comes to shove, you will not be there alone. So that's my little soft sell. Steve's going to talk to more of the very kind of very organized, logical parts that we did together. And he, I think, will recognize how we moved our thing is very much how we've all done it. But again, it's not the same journey, but we're here to make sure that we give you the benefit of our advice.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Price. Can't be said oftener enough that we're truly sorry for your loss. We do have a sense, we know how it feels, and we're here to help. We're here to connect with you. So we want to make sure that happens tonight and moving forward in the long haul. We've been through what you're about to go through, all of us. I know there's many, many more people from Waldo that would like to connect with you as well and give you the benefit of their experience. So we want to connect with you. We know you want to connect with us. So we look forward to that opportunity. I want to start off by just saying thanks. I know that there's a lot of things that I could say that I might repeat that Pat and Carla have already said. But I think you'd agree that we need to thank our first responders for doing an incredible job. We knew that was true, even though we lost our home. In the Waldo fire, there was certainly wasn't for lack of effort. I want to thank the commissioners and for New Life Church and all the folks that are involved in bringing this meeting about. I hope there are many others, and I'm sure we need more. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story. Carla's taken away a little bit of my thunder. My concern is maybe she's already taken part in my 15 minutes. I've had the opportunity many times in the last year to share my story, and probably the most important thing that I've said to people is this is an opportunity to demonstrate your character. Your family will walk away totally changed by this experience. And so it's up to you to decide how they're going to be impacted by this experience. And I can tell you from our personal experience, I wouldn't wish my circumstance or our circumstance on anyone, but I wouldn't change or turn back the clock either. It's made us a better family, it's made me a better husband and a better father. And so I'm happy to share all of those experiences with you as we get to know each other a little bit better. Carla touched on the importance of grace, and it's important that you not only show one another grace, but I think that you extend grace to yourself. Because you're about to go through an experience that you've never experienced either. It's difficult at times to be patient, to show restraint, to keep your wits about it. And my advice to everyone is to just pray for grace for one another and for yourselves. I had 3 real goals the day that I knew that our house had come down, long before the announcement was made publicly. First was to clean up our property. It was my goal that my backyard not become someone else's backyard. And that was a great decision for us. It gave us a sense of purpose, it gave us a direction, it got me going. I'm a checklist guy. And I know our neighbors and friends saw that. They expressed their appreciation many, many times over. And it set the right kind of example and tone for what was about to come after that. I can tell you that the most important thing is to take care of your family's immediate needs, and hopefully you've been able to do that. You know, I have the benefit of almost 33, or more than 33 years, I suppose, in the commercial investments real estate business. So my background is kind of on the outskirts of insurance, but I've never experienced this kind of loss on anything I've owned, let alone my own home. So I can tell you that making sure you have your family's needs taken care of is the first thing. We're already in a tight real estate market. And so staying in a hotel for 3 months is not what you want to do. And I know Carla would agree, and Pat would agree. So we made that a goal right away. And to the extent that we can help you, we will. The third objective that I had was to build a new home. I didn't care what that took. If we weren't certain whether we were going to build on the lot that we had. We weren't sure. But my goal was to build a new home. And whatever that took. That brings me to another point that I want to make. The media, for all the pros and cons, tends to, at times, simply repeat what's been said to them. And one of the things that we've learned to, I guess, bristle at a bit is the term totally destroyed or not affected. We don't know one person, one home that was not affected. Everybody's home to some degree, everybody's property to some degree is affected. And so my challenge is for you to help get the word out to all of the folks, from the sheriff, from everybody, anybody in the media, challenge them on that. Because I can guarantee you that the insurance companies, our hope is you'll have a very positive experience. And I think most people did, as Carlos said. I think most people had a good experience, and their insurance companies did the right thing by them. But they can, and sometimes will use that kind of terminology against you. Say, well, your home is not affected. When in fact, it could be smoke damage or heat damage, or the kinds of things that Pat talked about. I want you to know that I've learned a couple simple truths about the insurance business. That an insurance company's job is to collect 100% of the premiums. So you won't take anything less than 100%. But they'll never pay you 1 penny more than what they're obligated to pay. Yeah. So if you don't ask for it, you will not get it. And that means that you need to be businesslike, you need to stay professional, times cool-headed, you might need to retreat to your own corner, when you collect your thoughts, walk around the block, whatever you got to do. You need to stay professional. You need to be polite, but you need to do everything in writing. And for me, I learned that the Miranda rule applies. What you say can and will be used against you. So keep that in mind as you're dealing with your company. Doesn't mean they're bad people or that you've got a bad company. It just means that what it says. Carla said this is a marathon, not a sprint. And that is so true. We did everything that we could possibly do, being in an allied field. We closed on our lot, a new lot, within 4.5 weeks of the fire. We cleaned up our lot within 4 weeks of the fire. We hired an architect. We'd done all the things that we needed to do. And we got through the regional building department in 1 day, praise them. But we broke ground exactly 7 months to the day after the fire. That's how fast you can do it. Now that in fairness, meant that we went out and bought a new piece of property. So for those of you who intend to rebuild on your property, there's a pretty good chance you can get it done. As Carla said, they've moved in. We're about 3 months away. So I can tell you, it's about an 18-month time frame for us. I love the fact that she said that, hey, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Everybody's way is okay. That's important. But let me tell you, this is a business relationship. They are not Santa Claus. They're not the Tooth Fairy. It's a business relationship. So the sooner you figure that out and deal with it like a business relationship, meaning you do everything in writing. Anything that's said on the phone goes in writing. You need a diary to keep track of all of your conversations with your insurance companies, the things that are done and said. And we didn't have the experience of our initial adjuster saying, here, we're going to pay for that. We want to pay for that. In fact, he said, hey, just keep copies of your receipts and turn them into us and we'll reimburse you for those. Well, the reality is they're not going to pay for anything. See, it's your money. Whatever you get is coming off your policy limits. So it was a couple days after I figured that out. I went back and met with the disaster center at the time, and I asked him, I said, can we stay at the Broadmoor? And he said, well, in your case, you have a very nice home. Sure, I think you can stay at the Broadmoor. I said, can I stay in the Sultan Suite? He said, well, that might be a little excessive. My response was, why do you care? It's coming right off the top of my policy limits. And he said, you're right. So realize, Carla ticked it off. Look, you've got to get to know your policy. And all of the buckets of money that are available to you, there are more than you can imagine at this point in time. She made another comment, I'm going to repeat it again. She said, get a certified copy of your policy. A certified copy. Because those policies change over time. They'll move the comma from here to there, and it makes a difference. You need all your endorsements and riders and supplements. And if you don't have a certified copy, in fact, you're not sure whether you've got the right copy or not, or whether the comma's in the right place. I not only asked for a certified copy of my policy, I demanded a certified copy of all my underwriting documents when the policy was taken out, and found that they used actually 2 different methodologies to determine value in our home, which resulted in our being underinsured by about 25%. It's okay, shame on me. That won't happen again. I call this going to the University of Insurance for the last year. So I don't mind paying the tuition, but Will Rogers once said, there ain't no education in the second kick of a mule. Okay, so I'll wrap up. I'll tell you a few things that we did right. One is you've got to learn to earn. It's your money, but you got to go after it. And the only way that you're going to be able to get what you're entitled to, and every penny of what you're entitled to, is you've got to go to the University of Insurance. So you've got to get a copy of your policy. You've got to read it. You've got to understand it. If you don't know, find somebody like me to help explain it to you. In that policy, I like to tell people that's like understanding the NFL rule book. Okay? You're in a game now where you're a Pee-wee football league that hasn't had its first practice. You're playing the New England Patriots, and they've got a sideline full of professional coaches who've been in business for decades. So the deck is stacked against you. So you've got to be diligent and assertive. You need to recognize that there are certain deadlines established in your policy, and that you've got, in many cases, 1 year to repair or replace your stuff, including your home and the things that go in it. That's huge. How can you possibly think about replacing the stuff if you haven't yet replaced your home? That's a problem. Now, we've been fortunate to be involved in helping pass House Bill 1225 legislature this year, which extended the deadlines for the right to sue these companies to be consistent with the statute of limitations in the state of Colorado of 3 years. Unfortunately, we also got in writing from our company, American Family, that they aren't certain they're going to abide by that state law. Wow. That's shocking. So, don't forget, it's a marathon, not a sprint, but the clock is ticking. Okay? You've got to document your claim, and you've got to get going. So, one of the things that we did right was a quick response. Like Carla's friend, we paid off our mortgage right away. That was the benefit of being in the real estate industry and knowing that those checks were going to be made out to us and to our insurance and to our mortgage company. We were in a fortunate position where we took that first check, paid it off, and made it very clear we didn't want any future checks made out to the mortgage company. That saved an immense amount of brain damage down the road. As Carla said with State Farm, you've got 24 months on your additional living expenses. Your ALE is also called sometimes your loss of use. Most policies are 12 months, some are even 6 months. Okay? House Bill 1225 does not help you in that regard. That's a problem. A couple things that we did, again, quick response and relying on our network of friends and trusted advisors. I reached out to as many people as I could that I respected to help get us good advice and to get us going in the right direction. I did that right away. And so I can tell you, in my opinion, surrounding yourself with as much professional advice as possible is a good thing. You've heard about a little bit, I'm sure, about the pros and cons of using a public adjuster. We did use a public adjuster. It was a very positive experience. They don't come for free, but neither does my CPA or my attorney. I certainly wouldn't expect to go in and fight with the IRS on my own. I would hire the very best tax advice I could possibly get. And my recommendation to you is not everybody's going to need a PA. One of the things that you'll need to do right away, or at least get a gauge of soon, is think about your resources, your time and your talent. I brought an actual copy of my claim, so I'm happy to show that to you all, so you can see what my claim looked like for my dwelling and for my contents. So I'm a little bit anal, as some of my friends will say. I know my wife would agree. And I'll tell you up front, I'm a mad Irishman, okay? You know, it took me several months, maybe 4 months, to get over being angry. I didn't like how I was being treated. I didn't like the stonewall effect. It seemed to me that when I could show them pictures of something being completely destroyed, and I had the experience of seeing this on the commercial side of real estate, I knew I wasn't going to get a check for the whole thing. I had to document my claim. So you're going to need to do that. Get professional advice. You want to research and get lots of references, and don't sign anything right away. The other thing is, you can look on the DORA website if you do choose to look at a PA, and they are identified as non-resident public adjusters and resident public adjusters. I have a very strong recommendation that you look only at resident public adjusters, someone who's your neighbor, who knows Colorado law, has experienced these Colorado adjusters, and I think you'd find that to be very helpful. What could I have done better? I wish I'd have known about the Miranda rule. I grossly underestimated the amount of time that it might take to document our claim. And I wish I had a better understanding of my policy, but I do have that now. I also want to share with you that I wish I had a better understanding of DORA's role, because that was a frustration for me. The DORA's role is simple. They keep lots of data. They oversee a lot of different licensed professionals, not just insurance. And their role, as it says right on their website, is not to be the arbiter of fact. That was shocking to me. So there's a lot of things that we did well, things that we could have done better, and I'm just proud of you all for being here today. So please, please rely on us all as a resource, and God bless you all.
We have our Commissioner of Insurance with us for the Division of Insurance. Commissioner Riesberg is going to come up real quick and just say a couple of words before we introduce Bobby Baca, who is the Supervisor for Property and Casualty. And she has just a short presentation she's going to show you before we open it up to the questions that you're writing down on your index cards. One of the things that we are going to attempt to do in the county is to work well with Colorado Springs together. We are looking for those families that are from Waldo that want to adopt a family from Black Forest Fire. Because I think walking through this journey together with somebody who's experienced it is invaluable, as I think many of you would probably agree. We will be working collaboratively with them. This presentation, as a matter of fact, if you have friends that were unable to make it tonight due to other commitments, will be on the county website, is that correct? And it'll be under elpasoco.com. elpasoco.com. Give us a couple of days to get it uploaded. It'll be there for you. So, without further ado, Commissioner Riesberg.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to share. I had the opportunity to listen to some of the questions that some of you had on Friday night, and I know that there's just a lot of information that you're being bombarded with. And as I said on Friday night, our hearts go out to you. DORA, the Department of Regulatory Agencies, is part of the executive branch of government in the state of Colorado. And I bring you greetings this evening from our Governor John Hickenlooper, and from Barbara Kelly, who's the executive director of DORA. The Division of Insurance is one of 9 divisions in DORA. We have a Division of Insurance, Division of Banking, Division of Securities, Division of Civil Rights, the PUC, and it's the job of the regulatory agencies to regulate businesses and to work on behalf of consumers. You've heard today about a lot about insurance. Obviously that was the purpose of the meeting. Unfortunately, there are a significant number of people in Black Forest who are uninsured. And so the problems that some of you will be experiencing, they will experience even more because they won't have any help whatsoever. And they're going to have to work out a whole lot more things on their own. I had the opportunity in July 2 years ago, July of 2011, to be at a meeting in Boulder on the first anniversary of the Waldo Canyon Fire. And some of you may remember that fire, 167 homes, which at that time was one of the largest fires in Colorado. And during the public testimony during that meeting, a lady stood up and addressed the audience and for about 20 minutes gave a tearful recitation of all of the horrible things that happened to her in working with her insurance company. A little while later in the program, another lady stood up and said, I just need to tell you that I had a very different experience. I got along well with my company. We did have some questions and some hurdles we had overcome, but we were able to manage that, and I'm very happy with the way things turned out. I met both of those ladies after the meeting. It was the same company. And so there's a lot of things that we need to keep in mind. And it might be the attitude sometimes when you have a meeting and you didn't walk around the block to calm yourself down. It might be a different adjuster. You need to know that if you're not getting along with your adjuster, you can ask for a different adjuster. Our role in the Division of Insurance is to regulate companies to try to create a level playing field in Colorado. There are about 1,500 licensed insurance companies in Colorado. There's 120,000 licensed agents. And we have to work to make sure that those companies are doing what they're supposed to do, and hopefully those agents are doing what they're supposed to do. We regulate the industry so that we can make sure that companies are following the law and they pay the claims as the claims come up according to their contracts. We can only do what we have the statutory authority to do. So in many cases people come with, you know, this is a big problem, I'm sure you heard about it, you ought to do something about it. We said, we'd really like to, we agree with you, but we do not have the statutory authority to do that. And so in some cases, the statutory authority needs to change, and we'll talk a little bit more tonight about House Bill 1225 and how that statutory authority is changing. You heard good information about getting a certified copy of your policy. You should always start with that. Unfortunately, the average person, including probably many who work in our office, have never read their policy until they have a claim. And by then, it's almost too late. And now, one of the things that we'll talk about in 1225 is a whole lot more work being done to help you understand your policy when you first buy it. And so that you understand all of the benefits that are available to you and have choices you can make. A decision was made, well, some of you have 12 months of additional living expenses, some of you have 24. Two companies have 24, all the rest have 12. Eventually, all the companies will have to give you an offer of either 24 or 12, and then you can make your decision. So having a copy of that policy is very important before you talk to folks, because you need to be able to ask the right questions, and you need to have a pretty good idea of what you're covered for and have your adjuster explain that to you if your agent has already done that. The other important thing is it's very likely that many of you will be talking to your neighbors and checking on their experiences. But it's important to know that there are many different kinds of policies that are written through many different types of companies, and just because they've got one thing from their carrier doesn't mean that that's what you're going to get from yours, because your contract may be different. It's very important that you have filed your claim. I have to assume that most of you have. If you have not, that's the first step that you have to make, is work with that company and get your claim filed so that you have a number that gets someone assigned to you. There are three different kinds of adjusters. There's the company adjuster. That's an adjuster who works specifically for the insurance company. Sometimes in a catastrophic loss like this, where there are so many all at one time, they don't have enough company adjusters, so they will hire an independent adjuster. And this is someone who is an independent contractor working on behalf of that company to help settle their claims with those people who have had a loss. And then you've heard tonight about public adjusters. And Bobby, when she comes up, will talk a little bit more about public adjusters, but it's important that you know how to check them out. And all of the information that we'll be talking about tonight is in these packets that we have on the back tables outside. Many of you picked one up as you came in tonight. If you didn't, please pick one up as you leave. They talked about a diary. One of the things in here is a notebook where you can start keeping track of everything, and a pen. And a lot of the information that we're talking about, how to deal with your adjuster, how to look at adjusters, how to evaluate a public adjuster, and other information you need to know when you're filing a claim. You need to work well with your company. In the end, you may have some issues, but you have to remember that you have insurance, you have that company, you have a contract, you paid your premium, that's where you should start. And when you begin looking around when it's not working well for you is when you then might be looking around and you need some additional help. One of the best sources of help would be to call us. In our division, we have a complete unit who works with consumer complaints. And so something happens, you need information, and the adjuster is using terms, and you have trouble understanding what it is. And this is what they told me, is this right? You can call us and we can help you work through those problems. We receive about 2,000 calls a month. Of the 24,000 calls we get every year, about 4,500 of them turn into a formal complaint. And a formal complaint is when you give us permission to intervene in your behalf with that company. And so we listen to what your needs are, then we get a hold of the company, we say, this is what we're hearing, tell us what's going on, and it's our job to enforce the statutes and to make sure that they're paying you according to the contract which you have signed with them and the premiums that you have been paid. Another important thing is, with the exception of the house, where the company might have a picture, or the assessor might have a diagram of how many square feet, what your home looked like, for everything else, there's only one person who knows what you've lost, and that's you. And so sometimes people say, well, you know, what about all this personal possessions, and why do I have to make a list of all the things that I have? Because they don't have any idea what you have. And when you bought that policy, they gave you a certain percentage of your dwelling value as personal possessions, sight unseen. And they said, you have this much coverage for that. And now they have no idea how you live. And so it's up to you to be able to make that list so that they can begin to work with that. I think those are some starting points that are important. Bobby Baca, as was announced, is the manager of our property casualty section, and she wants to tell you about some of the specifics of filing a claim and a little more detailed work of what we can do in the division. We have 800 numbers in that packet. We have some other flyers with our numbers outside, and we're there. We're a division of the state. We have a mission to work with folks, to regulate carriers, and to protect consumers. The other important thing that's important, however, is we cannot change your contracts. We can help you get what your contract calls for, but if you don't have a coverage or the right things are not in your contract, we heard one of the comments of Waldo Canyon was they weren't going to quit until everyone was made whole. And I had to explain that some people won't be made whole because they didn't have a contract that would allow that to happen. So we can't change your contract, but we will do everything we can to make sure that what you receive is what you have in the contract that you signed with that carrier. The expert in our office, Bobby Baca.
Commissioner pretty much told you most everything we do. We have a PowerPoint. If you want to flip to slide 3, let's go to 4. So I'm, as they said, I'm the supervisor of the property and casualty section of the Division of Insurance. I have a staff of 7 very capable analysts who handle consumer complaints and the consumer telephone calls. Our job is to educate the consumers and to take those complaints and make sure that the companies are doing things right. Go ahead and do the next slide. I'm going to kind of do this. How we do it, so we have, you can file a complaint, you can call our office at the end of this presentation. On the PowerPoint, we have our phone number, our website, and our email address. You can ask a simple question about your policy contract or about something that the adjuster told you. We will answer that question. If it rises to the level of more than just education, then we will recommend that you file a complaint, because we want to see what the company is doing and make sure they are not, that they're giving you what you need and helping you to the best that they are required to do. Currently we have 4 laws right now that are specific to homeowners insurance. And basically, there are cancellation and non-renewal provisions. There are a few prohibited practices. There's fire insurance, underwriting activity during a wildfire, and a summary disclosure requirement. One of the things I wanted to mention, because I actually received this phone call today from a resident in South Fork, and his insurance company was non-renewing him. But we have a statute that specifically says that while your property is in a federally designated wildfire area, the company can't take any underwriting action against you. They can't non-renew, they can't cancel your policy. So if anybody's seeing a non-renewal or had seen something happening while the fire was going on, you need to contact our office, because the companies cannot do that. And then we regulate by the policy contract. I have to say thank you to all these people, because they gave a lot of information that I was prepared to give in the presentation. Kind of what to do for for the claim process. File your claim, be organized. In the packets, we have the notepad. Keep a pen and paper with you at all times. If you're required to file or to complete the inventory form, as most companies are going to require, then have something with you always. So you wake up in the middle of the night and you remember that you had purchased something at Best Buy and you jot it down, or you're walking through JCPenney's and you're like, I had that dishware set, or I had those pots and pans. Write it down, something that you may not necessarily remember. Linens, towels, things that you keep in your drawers. Is just always keep those things in your mind, because you want to document everything that you had. Keep all your receipts as they explain to you. You want to make sure you do that, and complete the required documents from the insurance company. You'll need to fill out a proof of loss. That doesn't mean it can't be changed. So fill out the preliminary proof of loss. The insurance adjusters will work with you to come to the appropriate amount. If you identify something else or something more that you need to add to it, they will work with you to do that. But it is very important that you get that proof of loss turned in, because the insurance companies may not proceed with the claim handling until it is done. Beginning the inventory process, don't wait. I know, I can't imagine what everybody has gone through. We've said this before with Waldo, and we've said it in Hyde Park. I've never lost my home. I can't imagine what you guys are going through, but it is important that you start the process now. So begin the inventory process. Review your credit card statements. If you can't remember something, or when you purchase something, go back to your credit card companies. They might have the information. I think it was Carla mentioned Amazon and American Furniture Warehouse, Best Buy. They can print you a copy of everything you bought. So just keep that in mind. If you know the stores that you normally shop at, they may be able to help you complete that inventory. The claim process takes time. Again, as everybody said, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and it will take you time to get this done. But what we just want to encourage is that you continue to work with your insurance company. So the next slide is a little bit about House Bill 1225 and what it does. Now, House Bill 1225 does not become effective until January 1, 2014. However, we know and we have heard that there are some companies that will be 1225 compliant for this particular law. So talk to your company, ask them if they'll provide some of the timelines that are provided in House Bill 1225. One of the things that it does is it requires an insurance company to offer a 30% minimum contents coverage check. They'll write you a check for a minimum of 30% of your contents coverage without completing the inventory. Some companies, as we've heard, will write you a check for 50% or 75%, depending on the company. Again, it's not mandatory at this point in time, but ask the company, they may consider it. The methodology for depreciated values must be made available to the policyholder. Again, this is effective January 1, but ask. If the company is depreciating your property, ask them how they came to the depreciated value. Insurers must allow 365 days from the date your additional living expense coverage expires to replace your personal property. Once again, this is something that's effective January 1, but ask because they may do this. And then the 365 days to complete inventory. Right now, some companies require it in 90 days, some 180 days. A lot of times what we hear is that the companies will work with you. If you're continuing to work on it and you're showing progress, they will continue to work with you and give you and extend those deadlines. Hiring a public adjuster. So we've heard stories, we know a couple of people have hired public adjusters. Not everybody necessarily needs one. We did have legislation this year on public adjusters, and the regulatory structure of public adjusters is House Bill 1062. So currently, right now, what the division has authority over is the licensing of public adjusters. But we don't have any enforcement mechanism. So when we get that phone call and somebody says, what do you know about ABC public adjusting firm or this particular public adjuster, we don't really have a lot of information about them because we don't get complaints, we don't regulate them per se. So January 1, 2014, again, is the magic date, and we will have a lot more teeth on public adjusters. But right now, you're not required to use a public adjuster. And if you do sign a contract with a public adjuster, somebody comes knocking on your door or and soliciting your business, you have 72 hours to rescind the contract if you decide maybe you shouldn't have signed that contract. Some of the provisions from the new House Bill 1062 is now the public adjusters are regulated like licensed producers, like your insurance agent. So we have a little bit more teeth. There's going to be subject to license suspension and revocation. They have to uphold ethical standards. They can purchase a bond, a $20,000 bond to cover if you sign a contract and you hand them a check and they walk away, they'll have a bond to cover that. Following a catastrophic event such as the Black Forest Fire, the public adjusters cannot charge any more than 10% of their coverage amount. So what we heard last year was some public adjusters were charging 10, some 15, some as much as 30%. So as of January 1, 2014, they won't be able to charge more than 10%. And one of the key things, and it's important to note that the resident public adjusters here in Colorado were in favor of this bill. They supported the bill, and they worked with the division to make this work. And one of the things that they had requested, and we agreed with, is a strict prohibition with financial incentives. So a public adjuster cannot have an interest in a contracting company or an environmental company, and they can't refer you to that business and then earn money off of that as well as the public adjuster fee that they're charging. Again, it goes into effect January 1, 2014, but if you're looking for a public adjuster, ask them if they're following these rules now, because if they are, then they're probably a pretty good and ethical public adjuster. Before hiring a public adjuster, do your homework. Please, please, please. I can't stress this enough. We do get phone calls. We don't have any regulatory teeth over them. Check with the Division of Insurance to see if they're licensed. Check to see if they're resident or non-resident licensed, if it matters to you. Check references. Ask them for references. Get testimonials. Get phone numbers so you can call somebody and check their references. Check with the Better Business Bureau and any other resources. There's blogs out there. People, today's society, if you go to the library, you can Google somebody's name and you'll come up with a bunch of information on it. And then talk to the residents of Waldo Canyon, because we know a lot of them did hire public adjusters. We know some of them had good experiences. We know some of them didn't have good experiences. Find out what their experience was. And the last slide is our contact information. If you have one of our packets, our business card is in there, so our email address, our website, and our phone number is on there. If you have any questions, call our office. And like I said, any one of my staff are fully capable of answering any of your questions, and if we can't give you an answer immediately, we will either check on it and return your call, or we'll ask you to file a complaint so that we have formal documentation of it, and we'll go to the insurance company and have them explain it.
Commissioner Riesberg and Bobby stay up here because you may be answering some of these questions. We're going to answer as many of these questions as we possibly can. We've got about 45 minutes, and we've got a lot of different questions. So if you have a question right now, make sure, get it written down, pass it towards the end of the aisles. We have some folks that are collecting them out here in the aisles. Some of you have heard over and over again, faintest ink better than the sharpest memory, right? So you always want to write it down, document, and while we may not, some of us have had an opportunity to document before, this gets to be a new chapter in our life. And there's a wonderful book that many of you, I think, received at the Disaster Assistance Center that will also be a great memory jogger. Amy Bach and Carol Ingalls. Is Amy Bach here tonight? Sometimes she comes to these, so I don't know if she's here tonight. But this is a great memory jogger, just helping you. It's a disaster recovery handbook, going back through, did I have this, did I do that? If you do not have one of these yet, we'll get some more of them up at the Disaster Assistance Center that is now set up at the Classical Academy, which is our north station. We heard you loud and clear. We moved it from downtown and we moved it up closer to the Black Forest. Okay, we're going to start with hopefully some of the easier questions, and I just wanted to make sure and do a disclaimer. Any names or numbers or anything that was mentioned here tonight is certainly not something that is endorsed nor supported by the county. Again, you heard Bobby say, be very careful, be very intentional in who you choose. Go through the Better Business Bureau, go through other folks to get personal recommendations and referrals. So the first question that we have this evening, the first time that we met with our adjuster, he promised us a large lump sum for our home. 4 days later, he said, oops, made a mistake. Now he's only going to cover the current cost of the building and some of the house with upgraded necessary for new code. Is there anything that we can do? And I know that I'm going to help remind you all brief answers. If one of you answers it, let's just pass the mic on down. So anybody want to take that one?
We ended up getting a copy of our estimate from State Farm on how much they estimated that our house would cost to replace. We felt comfortable. The amount came in more than what we had it insured because it turns out that selling a house is not the same price it costs to rebuild. As Steve said, my bad, I learned a lot. But you go through that, when they prepare that for you, go through, make sure it's accurate, and you should have a dollar amount. And have it in writing. That's one thing I want to just touch on what Bobby said. If you have something different than what your contract says, that they're going to give you an extension, get it in writing. If the adjuster tells you something, get it in writing. So the big thing to start with there is get a copy of what they use to come up with the estimate it will cost to rebuild your house in today's dollars.
Great. Faintest ink, better than the sharpest memory. Again, as we've said over and over again. Be detailed. This is a business. It's your money that you're trying to get back, right? Okay. A couple of questions dealt with loss analytics and other companies. Are they worth the 10% when you've lost an outbuilding? For an outbuilding.
That's a tough question. That's a tough one to answer. For an outbuilding, I would not think that paying the 10% would be worth it. I guess it depends on the value of your outbuilding and whether or not, if your outbuilding is worth $10,000 or do you want to give up $1,000 of your coverage amount? Because remember, this comes off your coverage. So, if you pay $10,000 to rebuild your outbuilding, you're only going to get $9,000 because $1,000 is going to go to loss analytics. Or if it's $100,000, you're going to get $90,000. $10,000 is going to go loss analytics. So it really is a decision that you have to weigh and do your research and decide upon, but it really does depend on the value of that outbuilding.
Good advice. And I know that Bobby and the commissioner would be happy to answer some of the questions too.
I was going to jump in on a couple things. There's been the names of a couple folks or companies battered around. I highly encourage you to write this down. NAPIA, NAPIA. That's the National Association of Public Insurance Adjusters. Anybody that you're talking to, that you might consider to hire as a public adjuster, should be a member of NAPIA. They have a strict code of ethics. They, as Bobby said, the resident public adjusters, I made that point earlier, through Dory you can check to see whether they are non-resident public adjusters, which means they don't live here, they're not our neighbors, they may not know these adjusters, or a resident public adjuster who does live here, who are our neighbors, who has your interests at heart, who are registered on their website, and they work diligently to police themselves. So if you're talking to any company, you ought to check first to see if they're a NAPIA member, and I highly recommend that you look only to retain those companies that are resident public adjusters. And to address the issue of when and why, if you're talking about a small claim that probably isn't going to be worthwhile to get a public adjuster involved. And I've heard also dialogue about, well, when would you get somebody involved? And some folks have even said, well, gosh, if you've negotiated until you can't get anywhere at all, and then you need to go get a public adjuster, that's probably the wrong time to do it. I know if I was being investigated for something, or if I had the IRS was coming after me for an audit or something, I'm not going to go out and hire somebody who's the best in their field after I've already exhausted the best I can do. You want to get the best folks you can on your team right away. So talk to lots of people, NAPIA members, and resident public adjusters.
Hey, may I add in one other thing?
Sure.
You've heard a lot of the bad things that can happen, and they surely can. I know people that have problems with their insurance company, but I want to tell you that it doesn't have to be a bad experience. You have a lot of things to worry about. I don't know that I would start with assuming that your insurance company is going to do the bad things. Some of them will. You need to be smart and educated. My take on that is that I didn't want to pay somebody my money because I had a lot of things. I had to rebuild a house. I had to replace a lot of things. So I would encourage you to be very, very cautious. I never like it when people you're going to get letters and solicitations and phone calls, and I'm sorry because that part of it's not fun. But don't assume and worry about this process now. If it turns bad, make sure you get the help that you need. But you know what? It's not going to be, a lot of my friends it's not a fun process, and I frankly resented having to do my inventory. But I got a fair settlement in my case, and many of my friends did as well.
Here's a question. Someone who's received a check from their adjuster, their insurance company. It's not a settlement yet. And they said, go ahead, cash it, but I feel very leery of cashing that check now since it's not a final settlement. Your advice?
If they haven't signed a final release or final settlement, I would go ahead and cash it, and that's where money is going to start it. So it could be this check under the additional living expense, and it's covering your expenses while you're out of your home, or while if you're still out of your home, then I definitely can cash the checks.
Okay. Let's see. Our insurance company used an old policy to write the current policy, causing our home to be grossly undervalued. Can they be held responsible?
File a complaint.
File a complaint. We lived in the country, but our insurance now says that we are in town and no need for mileage. However, I'm not sure that that's true. For example, there's a lack of bus service now for the kids, to get them to and from school this fall. How do I ask for their analysis for that conclusion on, we lived in the country, but now we're living in town, and they're not giving us mileage, I guess, to get kids back and forth, etc. And if I'm misstating the question, then come up to the side and I'll make sure and state your question accurately.
So I'm assuming the mileage that they're driving from in town to get their kids around is back out to the country area, then
Let's assume that.
they should be reimbursing for that mileage. So if they're not, you can ask them for their reasoning, their methodology of it, and then if you're not getting a satisfactory answer, call our office, but they should be reimbursing for anything over and above your normal expenses.
And wouldn't it say in the certified policy, what we always learn is in writing in your policy somewhere. So I think Carla makes a good point that this does not have to be adversarial, but I would totally read what's in that policy. And then I think, you go to body and say, they're changing the rules, which is maybe what the question sounds like. So you've got to get that certified copy. If you've not done it, please do it tomorrow. Before you're headed to the pillow tomorrow night, get that certified copy, and then all of these nuances hopefully will be a little bit more detailed, and that gives you a jumping off point.
And if they're telling you they're not going to do something, I would say, fine, can you put it in a letter for me so that I understand it? Because it's a really great excuse, but it's true. My head was all over the place. It was hard for me to keep track of information, and I needed to have stuff in writing. So if they're telling you something that they're not wanting to pay something, ask them to write a letter for you and explain for them the policy. They find that language.
We have a few questions dealing with our home is still standing, but it's standing in the middle of devastation. We're concerned about danger from ash, burned houses, toxic waste, and we do have to remember that this fire was very different than Waldo Canyon. Waldo Canyon, we knew that most of the homes were built after 1987. Okay? And a lot of the homes out in Black Forest probably were built before 1987. And so we are definitely dealing with many different things. I know that out at our Disaster Assistance Center at the north, we've put out, what do they call them, the hot dog bags or whatever they are, where you could put into large dumpsters and then be able to put some of the debris into those dumpsters with that liner that will zip it up and contain that ash. So how do the people that are living in the middle of it, they've got, how do they get like a medical opinion or something on, you know, is it safe to breathe this stuff? I mean, I know we have our Department of Health out there helping a lot. But do those people have any way to utilize insurance funding at all towards health issues, even though their house may still be standing? Right? There's no answer to these questions. but I will do. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say that, so most policies have an exclusion for pollution. So, you know, if it's smoke and ash that was directly impacting your home from the fire itself, then that may or may not be covered. I can't guarantee it without looking at the policy contract. But if it's concerns about, you know, the wind stirring up the debris from the house next door or the house down the road, may not be covered just because of pollution exclusions.
And we'll take some of these questions back too, and I'll ask some of our health department folks in relation to that with insurance with some of their knowledge. We'll continue to post on our website. We've kind of done a best practices and FAQ. We'll continue to bring forth this information. How many of you found out about this information because you signed up with the DAC and then received an email from the county informing you of the meeting? Okay, thank you so much for doing that. If you have friends who've not done that, it's our way to communicate with you, either through email and or text, to let you know of meetings and information. Endorsements. Trees were 5% of our dwelling. Does this only go into effect if you remove the trees? If you had an endorsement for trees, I guess is the question. Am I stating that? Who had that one that maybe am I misstating the question? Trees are 5% of the dwelling.
I'll tell you, in our particular case with our policy, we had, part of our policy was, and I think it was 5% of our coverage, was for landscaping. So we had to, you're limited to $750 per tree. Well, we landscaped our house 22 years ago, so you can imagine our 35-foot tree up front was worth a little more than $750. But that pot of money that they gave us also included what it cost us to remove the debris from our lot. And frankly, to me, that's my big concern for you guys, because while we had trees in Waldo, we didn't have trees like you guys have trees, and it's not cheap to have that removed. But within our policy, what we got for our landscape, and I think it was trees, shrubs, and bushes was on our cover sheet for coverages. That was to reimburse us if we were to replace trees, but also to remove the debris.
Right.
And also the policy should have a coverage amount for debris removal as well. That's aside from the trees and shrubs. And, but check your policy contract, because that could be 5% or 10% of your coverage, your dwelling coverage amount. And it's over and above your dwelling coverage amount. It doesn't absorb your dwelling amount.
How do we get the insurance companies to pay for replacing a stinky refrigerator, garage freezer, etc.? They say they don't cover the contamination. Policy says nothing about covering a loss because there was no fire there was no power there. How do you get your insurance company to pay for replacement of those items?
You might not. We had that issue at the Hyde Park as well. Because they were evacuated for such an extended period of time, it was food spoilage, and if there's not actual damage to the property itself, it probably won't cover the refrigerators or the freezers.
Yeah, our case was a little bit different. Our company actually came right out and told us that the food and of course we had a total loss, but rather than filing under the policy limits, which in our case was $750 per refrigerator, they came out and said, hey, this isn't as a result of the power going out, as a result of the fire. So I think if there's an example where a company, might treat you right, So I think, that, as Carlos says, you want to see how they're going to treat you. But, again, my motto is, I don't take no for an answer. So show me the language and get to know your policy. I also made a quick comment I wanted to make a mention. If you haven't done so, you want to take lots and lots and lots and lots of post-fire photographs, and one of which comes back to the issue of mileage, is take a picture of your odometer. Most people wouldn't think to do that. In fact, we just finished filing on the day it was due, our ALE claim, and I chose to wait to do that at one time, but we claimed all of the excess mileage that was as a result of the fire.
And ALE, Steve, is?
And your additional living expenses are sometimes called loss of use. And so, if you're going to make that claim, you need to be able to have the documentation to show that you actually had to incur the additional mileage. So take a picture of your odometer.
Pictures speak louder than just a million words. Here's somebody who wants to know about kind of the best practices things. They have smoke damage in their home. They've had estimates from multiple cleaning companies, but they're all telling them something different to do. So how do you know what the real smoke damage restoration includes? Is there anything dangerous, thermal fogging, ozone, etc.? Is there a best practices thing that they should follow rather than somebody just, everybody's saying different things?
Well, for us, PCI started at the ceiling and worked down. They used chemical sponges called chem sponges, and they wiped off the ceilings, the walls, everything, top to bottom in our house. And if you were in that area, that's what you need. Also, for the stuff that's lost, our agent said we pay $1,000 for any food that's lost. What do you think the value of your food loss was? And I said, she said, we pay $1,000 for food loss. What do you think the value of your food was? Well, we pay. And so finally I said, probably about $1,000. Thank you, she said. and I didn't see it in my policy, but that's what she told me. But yes, if you're in that area, you need to have your house chem sponged from the ceiling on down. Everything in it, chem sponged.
Is there anything on the DORA website that gives it, or somewhere else? Kind of like a list?
The United Policyholder website, I think Carrie knows this better than I. It's on the
Carrie,
right.
a little bit closer.
Sorry, no, it's
A little bit closer.
There's the United Policy website on the right-hand side. UPHealth.org. Can you see we do this together? And so it says Ask an Expert. Go to the United Policyholders website, and again, I think it's the pull down on the right-hand side, and ask that question with regards to environmental hygienist, which they ignored it was a career, but it's a career. But that might be another resource if you all don't have one here through DORA. We probably don't have that, but I will check with the environmental hygienist or OSHA, even some of the environmental protection agencies.
Well, and I'll add too, and I haven't looked specifically at this because we had a total loss, we weren't concerned about cleaning up, but Colorado Springs Together has a website, coloradosprings.together.org, and they gathered a lot of information there. There's videos, some of it's on debris removal, and it seems to me there may have been something on some of those health issues, but there's links to a lot of different places. The other thing I would mention, we're trying to get a program together where we can mentor Waldo families, if we're in a place where we can do that. We'll mentor some of you Black Forest folks, and they have a form there that you can fill out to say that you would like to be put in contact with somebody who has just walked this path, because nobody is going to understand this like we're going to understand this. I'm not sure where things are with that because Colorado Springs Together is winding down. But there are a lot of good resources on a lot of different issues at that website.
Absolutely. And that's what we're having the discussions with Bob Cutter and others to see how we can transform that and put it in with the county to make sure that doesn't just go away, because it's been a fantastic start, I think, for us in the future. Here it sounds like somebody was renting their home. The landlord does not plan to rebuild. Now, from the next comment, I'm going to assume that this wasn't a total loss. There was asbestos in the home, and we were told we'd have to pay to have a specialized company to come in to remove our contents. So it sounds like part of the damage was home, or part of the home was damaged, but it wasn't a total loss. And now you're being told you're going to have to clean up, or have a specialized company come in just to even remove your personal items there. True, false, or what?
Could be true, probably a requirement of the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, CDPHE. If there's any asbestos involved, they do have specific requirements with regard to cleanup.
And if they have renters, if you have renters insurance, that, you know, hopefully there was, then that would be something to check with your insurance company.
Okay, good advice. And again, we'll research some of these, and we'll be putting some of the answers on our website as we find out more detailed answers as well. Here's another one with some health issues. It sounds like their home is not affected, but because of allergies that their kids have, diverse health issues, they feel like they can't live there anymore. What advice would you give them? What should they do?
Your home is affected, period, the end. You need to call a company that will give you a restoration price on restoring your home. Otherwise, you'll have allergies, your kids will have allergies, and it just goes on and on. Your house needs to be chem-sponged from the ceiling on down.
I just want to say, well, Bobby and I are up here answering some questions. We do have two people from the division outside as well who can answer the questions. Remind you that we also have the packets out there that have a lot of this information in it. And if you were not at the meeting on Friday, the county made available a tremendous amount of information that talks about some of the health issues and cleaning up and the toxicity and the pollution and things. And if you were not able to pick that up, I'm sure they have it available. If it's not yet on their website, they had all that printed material that probably you can get at the Assistance Center.
Not to be critical, but some of the mistakes that I've seen people make is working under the assumption that their insurance company is there to document their claim. That's not their job, that's your job. And so, some of the folks that I've seen, particularly those with partial losses who have been the most successful, were the ones that went out and proactively documented their own claims, and in many cases had to go out and hire the experts, particularly when they were getting some pushback from their insurance companies. One of my friends, up until the day before the deadline, actually was able to push hard enough on the right button to get the company to come out, keep his claim open, and is now looking like they're going to replace all the windows in their home, even though they had heat and smoke damage. They were completely stonewalled 4 months ago. So document your claim. It's your responsibility. Hire the right people. And don't wait. Don't expect your insurance company to do it for you.
Good suggestions. Here's a question. What is the county going to do to help with tree removal and tree restoration? I think that Commissioner Glenn and I would probably both say that, of course, in the rights-of-ways where it is our responsibility, we are certainly going to be doing what we can to help out with that. When it's on private property, probably not a lot. That's your job, and we'll be with you to kind of encourage you, give you advice. But it was just like when we had Waldo Canyon. We've got folks right now who are possibly dealing with a flood tonight, that have homes that are debris and washing down the mountain. And unfortunately, it's some of those risks that as homeowners we take when we choose to live different places. And I don't mean to be harsh or cruel when I say something like that, but it is a fact. We're trying to have the county go out, and I think Judy Brown thought we'd say this too, go out and help determine which trees could possibly be saved, which ones are we going to give maybe a year. We're having professionals go out and assist with that, with homeowners as well. Heard that insurance companies are raising rates in mountain shadows by 2 to 3%. Is there going to be any state regulation against that?
2 to 300%.
Oh, 2 to 300%. Thank you. So 200 to 300%. Okay. Is there going to be any state regulation that would prohibit them from doing so? And if somebody wanted to change insurance companies, will they be refused coverage? would they be refused coverage if they chose to change from one insurance company to another?
So on the rates, I will address that first. Colorado is a file and use state. The insurance companies file their rate increases. They have to provide statistical justification to support those rate increases. We don't approve those rate increases and we don't disapprove them. We do review the information to make sure that it is statistically justified. I have not seen, when I see them, they're coming through as complaints. Consumers are complaining because the rates are going up. I have not seen anything that is 200 to 300%, but I have seen 30, 40, 50, 60%. So yes, rates are going up, and the rates are not going up strictly because of the Waldo Canyon fires. They're going up because of hail claims over the last few years, and Boulder Fire and Hyde Park Fire. Colorado has had a lot of natural disasters over the last 5 years between tornadoes, hail, and fires, and rates are going to go up. There's just no doubt.
Keep going. Floods, famine, pestilence, locusts.
And the rates don't go up over a single incident, they go up over a 3 to 5 year period. Last year, the insurance companies paid out $136 for every $100 they took in premiums. They do have reserves, but they can't do that forever. Colorado was projected in 2011 to be one of the top 7 states in terms of rate increases because of the history that we've had over the last 4 or 5 years. Just 2 weeks before the Waldo Canyon Fire, there was a hailstorm that went through, 70,000 claims, $321 million in claims. The other thing that happens is it's not always due strictly to the carriers. Right now, the ISO, which is an organization which looks at fire protection, is changing their rules. And they're the ones, you're in a fire protection district and they're ranked from 1 to 10, 1 being the cheapest and 10 being the most expensive. They would be the ones with the not much water around, no hydrants, maybe a volunteer fire, part-time volunteer fire department. They would have the highest rates. ISO is now changing those, and so as a result of that, the rates will go up in those areas. If you're moving from one fire protection district to another fire protection district, the insurance companies don't have any control over that, but once that happens, they have to look at what their risk is in those areas. So it's not only the things that directly concern your contract, but it's some outside forces as well that the companies have no control over.
Can I add one thing? One thing we learned, there are things that you can do to bring your insurance rates down if you're going to rebuild. We have a Class A, Class 1 shingle, and that means it's fire resistant and impact resistant. And because of that, we got a significant reduction in our insurance coverage. And actually, the one that gave us the biggest benefit was the impact resistant, because although we've had these catastrophic fires, hail is one of the largest claim areas. And it cost us more money up front, but we intend to stay there, as my husband says, until the kids' car is off to the retirement home. We will make up that premium, so keep that in mind. You've got a lot of things to be thinking about, but if you're rebuilding, there are things that you can do that will affect your rates.
And the only thing I want to add, if you start hearing things that require potential legislative action, please let us know. We have the privilege of having our legislators at the table with us right now. Senator Kent Lambert is here, he's listening. But we've assembled a team from whether it's the Senator's office up in Washington all the way down to our local legislative delegation. We're going to work with them real time, so if we need to make some changes, they're going to be here at the table advocating for us.
Here's a great recommendation from someone. For those that have homes that seem like little or no damage, it is important to get a certification that the building is okay. And this would be extremely important when you're looking at a resale issue. So make sure you get a certification that's saying that your building is okay for resale purposes.
And I'm sorry, I just wanted to go back. The second part of that question was finding coverage, if they wanted to go look for coverage with another company. We have a very good homeowner market here in Colorado. We have over 180, I think maybe 200 homeowner insurers here in the state. you, if you had a claim, if you were one of the Waldo, if you were affected by Waldo or something, it would probably be more difficult to find a different homeowner's insurance company, and maybe more premium, but there's availability out there.
Where do they get the home certification? Carla, any idea?
My house was kaput.
Okay. Okay. That's a really good question. We'll try to find the answer to. And put it on our website in the FAQs. Here's a question. If we decide to purchase a different piece of land, how does the insurance company look at that? We were told that they would deduct the cost of the land, the new land. Is there really enough left over then to rebuild on the new land? If we buy an existing home, how is the land portion valued?
I can tell you that because we actually, well, I guess Carla and Steve did this too. We bought the lot next to us because it's a little bit wider and we put back garage bay for our camper. And we bought, and when you guys still have property if you lost your house that has value. The insurance coverage A, only covers the structure. So that insurance, I don't know why anybody would say they're deducting value of the land. What you're looking at is what does it cost to rebuild the house that you lost? And that should be the starting point. Now, some of those additional coverages increase building an ordinance. If you build a completely different house, will your insurance company pay if you build a more expensive house? And there are some questions there. We worked through that with State Farm and just asked the questions and knew what we could do along the way. But really, the land shouldn't have anything to do with it. The coverage A is the structure, not the land.
So Steve, we're putting you on the spot on this one. So what exactly did you say that was used against you?
You know,
It's a police officer that wants to know. When they say that they've seen Steve's picture around places, it's kind of like King Supers hanging out.
I told you I learned about the Miranda warning, so I plead the fifth. No, I'm kidding. You know, what happened was when we first met with our adjuster, of course, your guard's down, right? You're emotional. And we have a tendency when we're in those circumstances to do what? Talk. So instead of, using the more important tool here, I was using this tool here because I needed to chat. And of course, our adjuster said, "Gee, we're real concerned about you, and how are you doing? And we want to make sure we take care of you. Where are you staying?" And I said, "Well, right now we're staying with our in-laws." And then he said, "Well, when are you moving?" And then all of a sudden, the Miranda rule kicked into my brain again, and I said, "I'm not sure. Let me get back to you on that." And next thing I know, I get something in writing saying, "By the way, I heard you say you're staying with your in-laws, so don't try to make a claim for the cost of staying in a hotel or somewhere else during that period of time." And so it was an innocent enough thing. Let me tell you what, I invoiced them under my ALE anyway for the cost of staying with my in-laws and my friends, because there's a cost affiliated with that, and that's a legitimate claim.
Should have chosen the Broadmoor, like you said in the first place.
Salted and sweet.
What do we do when the insurance adjuster will just not answer our questions? We've asked for a new adjuster, and they've told us that they have none. What now?
Go up the food chain. I repeated what Carla said. It's really her idea, but I'm Carla too, so we can do that.
That's a problem, because in my experience, and I'm not trying to paint everyone with this black brush, but I had the sense, and it's not just my own experience, but watching and talking to a lot of people, that there is a pattern of delay, deny, and ignore. And that's a problem. Especially when you're with a company where you cannot get face-to-face with an adjuster, you've got to go to the 800 number or whatever. I think you've got to figure out a way to be able to get an email address out of your adjuster. For American Family, not only were we successful in doing that, because I said, look, I don't know where I'm going to stay, my home phone isn't active any longer, I don't know if I'm going to have to change my cell phone number. And by the way, I think it's only appropriate under the Americans with Disabilities Act that you provide me with a mechanism to be able to reach out to you in writing. And that got him to say, okay, we'll give you an email address. For American Family, there's also a mail repository that keeps track of all of that correspondence called catfax11.com. And so anytime I sent any correspondence off to my adjuster, I not only copied him. Once I found out who his boss was, I copied him. Once I found out who his boss was, I copied him. When I finally got to the registered lobbyist for American Family Insurance, I copied him too. And catfax11.com. And it seemed to help.
Tenacious.
Being tenacious.
And document in writing. So if you have an adjuster tell you there's nobody else, then you write to them and say, on this day at this time I called, you told me this. And I had one friend who was really, I think, progressive and who was having some problems. He finally went down to the progressive office, walked into the front reception and said, I need to talk to a manager. But the more that you can document things in writing, I can't even encourage you strong enough to do that, because when you have stuff in writing, they're less able to say they didn't know that there was a problem, that you were getting wrong information from the adjuster, because you have documented that, and you're not going to feel like doing this, but just please do it.
And the reason it's important is because your time frame is now clicking away. And I don't want to browbeat you with that, but the reason that you have everything writing is at the 12th month or the 11th month and 29th day, when you have to have all of these requirements met. You then have writing and documentation to say that you have worked your claim, this is what you've done, and this is why you're respectfully requesting an extension. So you just have to know that there are a couple things happening always in tandem, and the time frame is a big one.
And another very important part of the documentation piece is that if it comes to a point where you're sending a complaint to our office and we're going out to find out what the adjuster is doing or saying, if we have that in writing, it gives us a little bit more, a better ability to challenge the insurance company and say, well, you're not doing this right, or you need to step it up and do something better. If it's just telephone calls and we're not privy to a conversation, we can't, it's a question of fact, and we can't make a determination as to who said what. So it's very important to have everything in writing.
So, and that's said from an attorney down at the end down there. And I'm married to an attorney. I'm telling you, the faintest ink is better than the sharpest hammer every time. We're going to go with two final questions here, and then we'll kind of wrap up our night because I want to be respectful of your time. Are there any indications of insurance companies potentially refusing to insure areas such as Black Forest, possibly even the Broadmoor that has lots of scrub oak down there in the future? And if that happens, would Colorado ever consider a state-run insurance organization like Florida has done for almost all of their coastal states for floods?
So I can answer the first part of that question, and yes, there is a possibility that certain insurance companies may pull out of areas that they don't feel that they can insure anymore. Can they handle another wildfire in the Broadmoor area or Breckenridge or wherever it is, but they decide that they can't write anymore. As far as a state-run pool, that would be a legislative change, and talk to your legislators.
Our legislators here. So
I'd like to just remark on that too. You may remember that last year the governor created a wildfire insurance and forest health task force. That task force is currently meeting. It has a wide variety of people with different issues and concerns, environmentalists, clean air people, insurance people, builders, realtors, county officials. And one of the meetings that we had just recently, we looked at 3 of the states that have that statewide mandatory insurance, and all of them are going broke. And so when we look at that, we really have to consider that as to, do we want the taxpayers to be stuck with the kind of bills that the state of Florida now has because they went that direction. That certainly has come up in the task force, and it's something that we're looking at before we make the final recommendations. But those states that have done it are not having a good experience.
interesting. Are there any insurance companies that require a 100-foot tree-free zone around a dwelling that you know of?
None that I know of specifically, but I do know that most, if not all, insurance companies require a defensible space around the dwelling. Some companies may say 50 feet, some companies may say 100, some may say 200. It's really going to depend on the individual company, but definitely they will require defensible space.
Well, the Gazette had a report this last week that said State Farm was sending around letters saying that you had to have 100 feet clearance around your house, which means where I am in mountain shadows, nobody could have any trees. That would concern me quite a bit. It became an issue for us in Parkside. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but we had the lots over there. There was a 3-foot setback. We are unlike you guys. We are crammed together in some of the areas. 3-foot setback, so you had houses 6 feet apart. And even some of the new fire codes that we were under, there was a question of whether these people could move back and have a tree on their lot. And I think I've been trying to be flexible and work with that, but that's one of those things I thought I need to call and check and see if State Farm, because we just landscaped and put some trees back in. The current hillside regulation mandates you can't have an evergreen tree within, how many, 50? 25? And then a deciduous tree can be within 10 feet. So, am I hearing Michael out there?
Yeah.
Okay.
15 on pine, 10 on deciduous.
Yeah, so that's under the cities, the fire department, the fire marshal, they've got these fire codes out now, and that was our requirement with these insurance companies, it remains to be seen.
So we said 15 on pine, 10 on deciduous, correct?
For the area that we're in.
For the area that we're in. Wanted to have Joy in the back here for Salvation Army. We have a couple of Salvation Army reps. Is Joy back there? Joy, raise your hand. She has a sheet that she'd love to hand out to you. Salvation Army continues to be our very wonderful partners in this. They still have rental assistance, utility bill assistance, etc., clothing and furniture vouchers. Wanted to recognize them. And then you'll also find some information for 20 top insurance recovery tips, and another meeting that's coming up soon on Monday the 8th at 6 p.m. at Woodman Valley Chapel, so make sure and gather those. Let's take just a moment. Now, I want you to know that all these people have volunteered to stay here afterwards. They're going to be on front. They will answer any questions that we did not get asked this evening. I tried to ask as many of them as I could. If we didn't get your questions answered, come ask them. Give me your slip of paper, because again, we're going to try to answer these questions and have them available on our website. Would you all join me in just applauding people who are brave? They were so brave to come share their story tonight. You guys are brave. You are heroes. You're survivors. And that's what our community is. Thank you so much. We are here to stand with you. Commissioner Glenn and I will be here through the end. We know this is a long haul as well. And we're in office for at least 2 more years. Maybe 6.
Before we wrap up, I do want to kind of lay out what we have planned. Again, we're going to schedule our next subcommittee meeting. We're going to talk about some of the land development code issues that we're going to be voting on tomorrow. People are asking, well, what is the county going to give us some relief on? We're going to make those decisions tomorrow, and the next subcommittee meeting, we're going to go into detail about that. So stay tuned for that publication of that meeting notice. And the only thing I really want to emphasize is, again, we're in this for the long haul. Do your best to talk to your neighbors, because some of you are going to struggle through this process. And let us know if we can help out, because we are going to be here for you for the long haul. We want to be able to provide whatever resources we can, because we are a community and we care about you. So I want to thank you very much. I want to thank the panel and Ann for putting this effort together. Have a good evening.